How many more times we'll have to do this? Frankly, I really don't know what to say. And all Mr. Jackson was guilty of, he wanted a job to make it better for his wife and 5 children. And yet they said, Negroes, please be patient. How long do you want us to be patient? And then you wonder, what kind of justice are we having? What kind of country is this?
Now streaming on PBS.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good to
How's
see
it
you
going?
Good. Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Nice to see you.
Oh.
Brad is here. He's went to get some water.
Okay.
I hope you have. Are you thirsty at all? Do you need a beverage?
I have water. Thank you.
Good. I will run and get you some. Oh, I guess I can't. Oh well.
Is this? Do you broadcast the video? I forgot.
I typically do. So yeah. I don't. Yeah. So I'll edit. I do a little editing. But addressing what you're probably getting at is, yeah, if you want to be video ready or.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't, like, if somebody doesn't want it, of course I accommodate that.
Hi, Brad.
Hello. I'm as video ready as it's going to get today.
You look good. So where are you, Brad?
I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, I love that city. That's a nice city.
This is the surf shop right by the lake.
Oh, very good. And you're in the city?
Yes, I'm in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn, very nice. And me, your host, where am I? I'm upstate somewhere.
Oh, we're upstate.
Yeah, near Bard College.
Oh, yeah.
Tivoli, New York. That area.
Tivoli. Awesome.
I know where that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a house in Boyceville.
What's that?
On the other side. We have a house in Boyceville on the other side.
Where is that? What town
It's
is
about
it near?
20 minutes from Woodstock.
Oh, okay. Like further west or something, or?
It's on the other side of the Hudson.
Yeah, no,
further.
I know that. Woodstock's on the other side. But I was just wondering if it was
Oh,
further
okay.
west.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, going towards Phoenicia.
I got you. Okay. Well, that's nice. Yeah, the Catskills are great. And
Yeah, it's so nice.
it's so beautiful. It's so, well, as always, only too happy to, get caught up with whatever Yoruba's working on. I was telling Brad that you've been on a couple of times over the years with prior projects that we had a good time last time. And so when I heard about this one, I felt, oh, great, let's do this one,
Absolutely.
So thanks to you both. I understand your broadcast went out last night, began. Now, can people go and still see it though on the fly? If you're right, you can go and still stream.
Oh, yeah.
anything.
Yeah, it's on Frontline's YouTube channel, and it's also on pbs.org/frontline.
Let's start talking about the greater sort of project that.
Hold on one sec. I just have to put something away that's making noise.
Sure, no problem at all. Yeah, it's been a few years since I've been to Milwaukee, but I had a nice time.
What brought you to Milwaukee?
What?
What brought you to Milwaukee?
Oh, I was engaged to a Wisconsin girl at the time.
That's what brought me here, but we ended up getting married.
Okay. Well, she did text me this morning, the same woman. Long story.
Really?
Yeah.
What's her name? I bet
She's
not.
She's in Madison though, what's her name? Cusick, from the Cusick family. Cusic.
What's her first name?
Cindy. Come on.
It actually does sound familiar.
I'm sure it does. Well, anyway, we could talk about that later on.
Okay. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the Unresolved project, which is, I guess, how would you put it? This is one of the sort of outgrowths of that broader project, correct?
Yeah. Frontline has been, they created this project, Unresolved, and they have a podcast called Unresolved that came out earlier last year, an interactive exhibit where they have, that was at, I think it premiered at Tribeca, and it's been making the festival rounds. Yeah. And you can, really beautiful exhibit where you can, experience the stories of the families and victims on the Emmett Till list. And simultaneously to this, we were making American Reckoning. And Brad can tell you when that started many years ago, but then Frontline knew we were making this, and basically beginning of last year, they wanted it to be a Frontline project, and came in as
it fits. It makes perfect sense. You're both kind of aligned here. These are
I always have a belief that films, even if they take a while to make and it's frustrating and what have you, but they find the home that they need to find.
Not in the documentary world. You're not talking about, of course. Yeah, it takes time, really.
Yeah, but it finds it finds the home that it needs to find. That's been my experience, and it certainly was, I think, our experience with this film.
We had actually pitched this to Frontline, I think in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
And Rainey was interested, but they didn't have the resources at the time to support it to the extent that it would have to get supported. So
was the people that you talked to back in 2017, did they remember? I mean, it seems you said they just knew that they already knew about it. So all of a sudden they were like, oh, wait, wasn't there something that Yoruba and Brad were doing?
No, because there was already a community of reporters. They kind of called themselves the Cold Case Project.
Oh, right.
Working on different stories, and they were already connected to Frontline, and then Rainey knew about this. And they had at one point when they were talking to us back in like 2017, 2018, whatever, they were thinking about a lot of possibilities, but they landed on the digital project, which is Unresolved. And then I think people started to say, well, isn't there a film in there? And as you said, our time had come.
So, and it's your film, like Unresolved, the Unresolved project, and calling it a project. I don't know, there might be a better description of it, but these are following these unresolved cases of African American and typically civil rights folks who were killed, and the project, and they're right, and their cases were never solved.
Most weren't civil rights
activists.
I mean, Emmett Till is under the list. He was a 12-year-old boy. So
that's true.
Victims of crimes, racially motivated crimes during the civil rights era.
Yeah, even the group that the Silver Dollar Group killed, because there were 7 other murders. I'm just thinking through my head. I don't think anybody was an activist except for Wharlest.
So it's time for me to edit already. I'll rephrase it.
Well, no, I mean, that's a good way to discover.
I was thinking in terms of your film, like Wharlest Jackson, who was a chapter, an NAACP chapter head, for instance. His case, for instance.
Yes, he was a civil rights worker.
Right, which is what your film follows, that story, and that of James Jackson, who I suppose
the Deacons.
Yeah, right. This group who, history has kind of erased, or folks have erased from history, I guess is a better way of putting it. Their story has never really been properly told. These deacons, what was it called? Deacons for Defense?
Yes, Deacons for Defense and Justice.
Yeah. It's such a catchy name too, you'd think.
It's a great name.
And I mean, there was probably, I'm sure, a little tongue-in-cheek irony, but it's also true that a lot of the guys who were part of this were deacons in their churches.
Oh, I'm sure initially, for sure. Right. It's also, your subjects, the people that are cast in your film. I mean, you still have so many, a lot of archive, I suppose, of actually people that were there, but there's still people, they were children at the time, but now they're older folks, or, maybe advancing into older age, who have very, very vivid memories of seeing, their families and their neighbors, and, caught up in this story that mostly takes place in Natchez, Mississippi.
Yeah,
absolutely.
there were people, last night during the broadcast, we were texting with people in the film, and they were telling us that they were getting texts and emails from people who saw themselves in the footage and who obviously are still alive. And I know today, one of the guys in the film, Sir Boxley, left us a voicemail in which he named like 4 people who called him last
Really?
night. Yeah, I mean, the film has in that community has certainly surfaced a lot of people, and people are talking, which is great.
And we're not just talking about African Americans whose parents maybe were the victims of the racist law enforcers, quote unquote, but also children of Ku Klux Klan members. It's remarkable, just one generation, how culture has made an impact for those who are more cynical. I mean, obviously we have a long way to go as a country, but it's kind of remarkable when you do see that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's remarkable that we don't see more of it. We felt it was really imperative that we get the voice in of the descendants of the perpetrators, if not the perpetrators themselves. And, I think as, we've seen a lot of stories of racial terror, but we rarely get to hear from the descendants of the perpetrators and to hear that voice. And I think until we do include that voice in these stories, we're not going to really reckon, forgive the pun, but with our history as Americans. This is not just a Black American story. I mean, that as Americans. So it was, I think we're very grateful for them for the 2 descendants, 2 children to participate, and really important to have that voice in the film.
Were those guys, 2 come to mind, but were they eager to tell their story or to participate?
Yes and no. We worked with Stanley Nelson, who is a local reporter and also was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize.
Not to be confused with Stanley Nelson from Firelight Media, by the way.
Exactly. Not to be confused with the filmmaker, who's also won his number of awards. But Stanley had a lot of relationships, and so he made the introductions to Leland Boyd and to Deborah Taylor. I would say Deborah was very eager to share her story. She also, had some genuine fear because she's more or less alone in her family in terms of it being okay to tell these stories about their father, about their dad. Leland, I think, had more sort of mixed emotions about how his father would be perceived. And part of that might be too, just their experiences with their father, really different experiences. Deborah was abused by her father, and she talks about that. We ended up not using it in the film, but she talked about it in the interview.
It is impressive just how open people are. Do you find that is, I'm trying to, I guess, figure out if it's, how much of it is their own need to just talk and to share, or if it's, just filmmakers who are good at getting that from their subjects and good at, setting up a certain amount of trust and accessibility,
It's probably both.
Yeah, I teach as well, and I was just talking with my students teaching yesterday. And, what I found from making my very first film, it was like one of the first things that I was like, oh, is that people generally want to tell their story, even if it's, something that is not, looked upon, or if not seen in a positive light, or could be taken in a, you know what I'm saying? And if it's something that is not like a good story, or if it's a differing opinion, I think as filmmakers, you go in with that assumption that telling their story is going to have their point of view reflected, and you want that in the film. So yeah, I think it's a combination of both as well.
Are you at the City University or Columbia? I forget.
At CUNY,
Brad?
CUNY Graduate School, the Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at CUNY.
Right, that's right. What, Brad? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, I was just totally agreeing. And I think also over the years of making films, I've come to believe too that, the converse is true, that if a person doesn't want to tell their story, you're not going to get them to tell their story. And even if you force it, it's not really, I remember one time on Ghost of Attica, there was a gentleman who I really, really, really wanted to be in the film. And we convinced him to do an interview, but it was a circumstance where, he was drug addicted at the time. He was really struggling. And at the end of the day, when we got into the edit room, it wasn't really a useful interview. And I really regretted that I pushed so hard to include him, because it didn't do him any favors and it didn't do us any favors. So I think there has to be a convergence of wanting to tell your story and the filmmakers understanding why it should be included.
Sure, I guess, your own eagerness can kind of make
well, it was 20 years ago. I was very different.
Young and eager, and and now you're jaded. Well, we're talking about the American Reckoning, which is co-directed by Yoruba Richen and Brad Lichtenstein, and is currently on Frontline. And is Unresolved making progress with their agenda? Maybe they're just presenting this information and these stories. I don't know. Are there leads to some of these unresolved cases? Do we know? Maybe
I think we all wish there were, but the fact is, the perpetrators are dead.
Yeah. I know, sure, but still, yeah.
Yeah, and most likely these families are not going to see justice in that kind of way of who be put in jail or that kind of thing. So I think what we've been talking about is how the film and Unresolved, the project, really begs the question of what is justice, what can be justice for these families, and it begs the question that it begs the discussion around reparations. These families were devastated by these murders that happened to them, and it resonates today. And how do we repair the harm that happened to these families? And reparations, which had been, for a long time a fringe idea, is now something that we're really talking about it. And you can point directly to these families as deserving of reparations.
And one of the things that Congressman Lewis, that we learned during our reporting on this and research, is Congressman Lewis actually wanted to have a truth and reconciliation process in this country. And when he proposed the Emmett Till Act, in a sense, it was already a compromise given what was politically viable at that time, which was 2007, 2008. So, I think he probably understood too that it was somewhat unlikely that many, if any, of these would result in indictments. I will point out that some of the reporters who were doing work that informed what became the Emmett Till Act, they were able to find ways to bring perpetrators to light of law enforcement, and people were indicted. The most famous would be Byron Della Beckwith for the murder of Medgar Evers. And so this work was going on long before the Emmett Till Act.
And people, I was just trying to figure out the website where people can go to get more information about Unresolved, but
I think you just Google Unresolved and Frontline.
it probably works.
That's what I
Yeah.
do.
Oh, and Dawn Porter is an executive producer.
She is indeed.
And
Very-
really helped us shape the film in such a strong way. I mean, we came, as you know, Frontline normally is much more sort of investigative, right? In terms of it, don't really do historically based films. And when we came to them and they saw, you know, our footage and our cut, it was initially much more, you know, about the sort of reopening of the case. And what Stanley found out, and they really encourage, and Don in particular really encouraged us to lean into that archival footage, that the story was in there. And that was the compelling story. And that was so compelling and helped us understand how we got to where we are today, that we had to tell that full story in order to understand the reopening. So it was amazing having that support from Dawn and from Frontline.
You know, she always would say, you know, tell the community story. You know, Wharlest was part of a community, and this was a community movement. And, you know, that really helped us complicate the story too, because the deacons are part of the community. They also defy the typical way that the story of civil rights movement is told, which is usually about iconic figures who adhere to nonviolence. And in fact, the civil rights movement and the entire Black freedom struggle is filled with all kinds of strategies. Of course, people were protecting their own communities, but we don't hear that because it gets whitewashed so often, either in history books and educational curriculums, or, you know, just the way that white dominated narratives in America take hold. So, you know, once we really leaned into looking at this community movement story, we were able to really bring out all these different elements.
Well, I'm grateful for you both. I know you must be tired and
I am tired.
ready for some.
Thank you for acknowledging.
And we'll do this again with some future projects, I hope.
Yes, we've got some some cooking up.
Yes, Yoruba and I are
Okay.
going to do something together again, so we'll have that at some
Yeah.
point. And then Yoruba has an awesome film that's getting towards done.
I don't doubt it. You want to
Sneak
give me a
peek-
scoop
sneak-
here?
Yeah, it's the first feature-length documentary about Rosa Parks, and it looks at her radical activism before
Before
and
the bus.
Yeah,
Before
and
refusing to go, right? To
And
the
after, for years and years and
NAACP.
after.
years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I even found this out not that long ago, that she had this whole, like, you know, many chapters before. That wasn't the beginning of her political life, refusing to give up her seat. So
right.
yeah, that's a great project, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Looking
thank-
forward to that. Maybe I don't know, later this year,
Yes.
early next year, maybe.
Yeah, later this year should be.
Oh well, yeah, you're very prolific. Thank you both, and have
Thank you.
a restful evening ahead.
Really
Okay.
appreciate it. Yes, I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to some rest.
Pleasure is all mine.
Thank you.
Sure.
Bye.
All right,
Bye,
bye-bye.
y'all.
Bye-bye. Take care.